hype, or in other words, expectations. It's one of the best and worst things to happen in the gaming industry. It can make a game feel even better due to it living up to this said hype, or it can make developers feel overconfident in their work, leading to them releasing an unfinished game. What's up, gamers? After 16 long years of development hell, Psychonauts 2 has finally came out. But I want to know whether or not it will live up to this immense hype, or if it will just fail to live up to the original. Now, in 2005, when Tim Schafer and the people at Double Fine released Psychonauts, it wasn't an immediate smash hit like Super Mario 64 or Crash Bandicoot. In fact, it sold so poorly, it was almost the sole reason Majesco Entertainment, the game's publisher, stopped publishing big video games in general. But Double Fine still had ideas for this franchise, which led to them gaining the publishing rights back from Majesco in 2011 and them re-releasing the game on different digital platforms like Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation. And this is where the game saw its second chance, where in just the first few hours it sold way more copies than its original retail release. Due to this success and a few smaller games, Double Fine felt comfortable enough to start working on Psychonauts 2, and it was pitched to many different publishers, but none of them accepted the idea due to the game's low sales during its original release. This led Schafer to seek out alternative forms of funding, and at the 2015 Game Awards, Psychonauts 2 was finally announced to be in development, and it would be raising part of its money through Fig, a crowdfunding site for games. Fig was founded by Bob Ippolito and, funnily enough, the former COO of Double Fine, Justin Bailey. Fig didn't just let fans support the game's development, but it also let these fans earn a small portion of the game's profits. And this worked tremendously, with Psychonauts 2 earning over $3.8 million in funding. This led to the announcement of a 2018 release date, which was followed up by Double Fine releasing Psychonauts in the Rhombus of Ruin, which served as a VR game to help hype up fans over Psychonauts 2. This would have been more than enough hype as is for this game, considering it would have came out over 10 years after the original. But this just didn't happen, and at the 2018 Game Awards, a new teaser and release date was shown off for 2019. And this didn't happen either. Things were going quite bad with Psychonauts 2's development, with multiple issues behind the scenes and public opinion turning. Microsoft, as usual, saw the opportunity to buy out a company, and they did just that. Now, many people have seen what happened to Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts due to Microsoft stepping into its development, and many people feared that Psychonauts 2 would suffer the same fate. But Microsoft actually appeared to learn their lesson, giving Double Fine as much money and time that they needed. This is super surprising that Microsoft were the ones to step in and save this game's development, especially considering big company saves little company's game never happens in the gaming industry. Especially with a sequel, it should have never been able to live up to the original. But in my mind, Psychonauts 2 is 10 times better than the original. As you'd expect, this game takes place right after the last two, but in case you haven't seen my video on the original Psychonauts or have the capabilities to play Psychonauts in the Rhombus of Ruin like me, here's a quick recap. Boy runs away from circus family to go to psychic summer camp. Boy meets Crush. Coach gets manipulated by evil dentist to steal brains. Crush's brain gets stolen. Boy defeats evil dentist. Crush's dad, who is important guy, got kidnapped by evil dentist. Evil dentist makes Crush's dad really sick. Evil dentist won't say who hired him. After that, this game's first level takes place in this evil dentist's head, where you're trying to learn who hired him to steal Truman Zanotto's brain. Truman Zanotto is also known as the head of the Psychonauts, so this is very important. You're sadly unsuccessful, but at the top of a reskinned asylum made out of teeth and gums, you learn that a powerful psychic named Maligula might have returned. Maligula was almost responsible for defeating the founding members of the Psychonauts known as the Psychic Six, and was responsible for the destruction of Raz's home country of Grulovia. Once you reach the Mother Lobe, you learn that you're not an actual Psychonaut agent due to Ford Kreller's broken state, meaning that he can't make you a Psychonaut. And instead, you're an intern, meaning that you have to prove yourself all over again, which is a nice way of having a similar progression system to the last game and having it fit into the story. You're then told to meet with Hollis, that way you can get a mentor, but on the way, you meet with the other interns, and they have such unique designs and personalities. but they end up tricking you into giving up your clothes and they lock you in a cold closet, which leads into Sasha giving you a brand new outfit which looks really cool and you'll be wearing it most of the rest of the game. When you finally reach Hollis, you'll be assigned the mentor of Nick from the mailroom, but upon entering the mailroom, you'll find a bunch of packages that haven't been sent out, and one of these include a package addressed to Truman Zanato. Upon opening this package, you'll find Nick's brainless body and a keychain to the Lady Luctopus Casino. After a quick lesson on mental connections, which is an ability to help you platform around and change the thought process of others, you decide to adventure further into Hollis's mind in hopes of convincing them to let you go on a mission. But in doing this, you activate the idea of risk equaling money, and this ends up unleashing an uncontrollable gambling addiction within Hollis. Now, this is what I love about this series, that it's able to tackle these darker problems, like addiction or mental issues. For example, in the first game, it talked about topics like paranoia or PTSD. And now in this game, in only the second level, it tackles these darker problems. And even before the game starts, there's a warning delving deeper into these problems and where to get help. Okay, after Hollis's level, you learn that Truman's awake, and that he needs Ford Cruller at his full power due to Maligula coming back. But after calling Ford, his mind breaks again, meaning that you have to find each piece of Ford, put them back together, and slowly learn the truth in the process. Out of the 3 variations of Ford, let's start with the one in the bowling alley. He won't let you into the bowling alley or his mind in that matter unless you have a senior pass, but after talking around you learn that one of the members of the Psychic Six, Compton Bull, has one, and after giving him some bees, he lets you into his mind in hopes of getting the voices to stop. Upon entering his mind, you learn that the level is themed around a cooking game show, in which you find out that the judges, aka his friends, are the voices that plague Compton's mind. And this level has such a fun yet challenging gameplay loop, in which you do different challenges within a time limit in order to make a food dish for the judges, much like an actual cook show. After a quick boss fight, Compton agrees to give you his senior pass, which means you can finally access the bowling alley and enter this version of Ford's mind. This level reminded me a lot of Lungfishopolis from the first game, because in both of them you're running throughout a city to try and complete a task before something dangerous happens. But while Lungfishopolis felt more 40s inspired and took nods from the old Godzilla movies, this level felt more 70s inspired and took nods from the Cold War and nuclear threats. As you're putting this piece of Ford's mind back, you learn that Ford was actually in love with Maligula, or as you learn her real name to be, Lucy. But even at that first date in the bowling alley, Ford had always sensed something bad was gonna happen. Next up is Barber Ford, and with him, you don't have to do anything special to get into his mind, like getting him bees or a senior member of staff. Instead, you can just walk up to him and ask. Honestly though, this level's probably the worst in the whole game. Not that it's bad or anything, but compared to what happens at the end and start of the game, it's quite uninteresting due to it just being summed up to a little bit of platforming and then climbing a tower. But when you're returning this piece of Ford's mind back, you learn that Lucy went to Grulovia to help her people and country, but that war had changed her into Maligula. Lastly, there's the mailroom Ford, but in order to reach him you need senior staff, but the only senior staff member is Nick, who is brainless. So you decide to talk to Otto Mentalis, the only Psychic Six member who came out of the Battle of Maligula relatively okay. After talking to Otto, you get a spare brain from the brain frame, which leads into you returning back to Nick and entering the best level in this game. Now, throughout this level, you're helping this mysterious figure gain back their senses and become adjusted to the world again after being locked away for years. But throughout this process, you slowly learn about their past and their true identity. After a while, you learn that this mysterious figure's true identity is Helmut Fullbear, a member of the Psychic Six who is thought to have died in the Battle of Maligula. So with each of the senses revealed to just be a stand-in for another member of the Psychic Six, you get them all together for a song, which I highly encourage you to check out if you haven't already, considering Helmut is voiced by Jack Black. But this song ends in a memory of Maligula being unlocked and her twisting it that Helmut's friends had just abandoned him. But after looking through some past memories, you learn that Helmut's friends haven't abandoned him, and have been trying to look for his body for quite a while now, but can't due to Ford being the only one who saw where it went, and him not being able to tell them. And with all of this in mind, you go back to Helmut's version of Maligula and lock her away again. and with this, Helmet agrees to help you get into the room where Mailroom Ford is. The goal in this level is to chase down a letter made by Ford Kreller that was to be sent out to Grulovia in hopes of it helping you get to the giant metal Ford's head. But of course, every time you reach the letter, it changes positions, which eventually changes your goal into correctly addressing the letter to Lucy, which ends up in the robot Ford blowing up. After this, you learn that the letter Ford was gonna send out was to show how much he loved Lucy, and that Maligula wasn't the true her due to her being pushed to do terrible things by the people around her. With all of the pieces of Ford put together, you slowly learn the truth that Ford tried to hide so long ago. That being that Raz's great aunt, who is posing as his grandma, is Maligula, and that Raz's real grandma was killed in Grulovia. Ford went on to explain that they were able to lock Maligula away behind closed doors within Lucy's mind using the astrolabe, but due to Maligula slowly tearing down these doors, they had to fire up the astrolabe and send her further down. Once you reach the astrolabe, you find it's covered in vines and very angry bees, and for both paths you go down, you find a Psychic 6 member. Upon trying to remove the angry bees from the astrolabe, you find the Psychic 6 member Cassiopeia, who agrees to help you but can't due to the Queen Bee needing help, so you decide to enter her mind. After a quick talk with a writer Cassie, a librarian Cassie locks her up, but agrees to help you with the bee problem if you find the other versions of Cassie, which leads to you finding a teacher and a counterfeiter. The reason why there's multiple versions of Cassie is because they each represent a skill she had to use when life got tough, but of course after using these said skills, she found herself a better life within the Psychonauts. After getting both versions of Cassie for the librarian and learning about Cassie's past along the way, you learn that you've been tricked, that way you and the Cassies get locked away. So Raz gets all of the versions of Cassie together, and they decide it's time that the librarian stops controlling them, which leads into this really cool boss fight where after each wave, a version of Cassie combines with the librarian to help you defeat them. With Cassie returned to her full power, she agrees to help you with the angry bees at the astrolabe, which leaves only the vines to be taken care of. After following the vines, you find Lily's great uncle and Psychic 6 member Bob Zanato, who appears to be suffering from alcoholism and wants to be left alone. So you decide to enter his mind to try and help him. Now, this level is probably the best with subtle hints, with it taking off with Bob stranded on an island, showing how he thinks everyone has abandoned him. So you decide to help Bob grow his garden, which leads to you tracking down some seeds into 3 bottled areas, and each of these areas represent a past memory within Bob's life. And these past memories show how Bob bottled up his emotions and the moments that led to his alcoholism. After finding each of the seeds and showing off some of the dark moments in Bob's life, which I won't spoil, the plants grow out of control, ending in a boss fight against Bob's darkest memories. But after a while, Bob starts fighting to see the full truth as well. And this boss fight represents how it's up to Bob to see the full truth and look past his emotions. After this, Bob agrees to help remove the vines from the astrolabe, and with all of the Psychic 6 members together and at full power, you enter Lucy's mind in hopes of sending Maligula further away. This level starts off in the circus implant Ford put into Lucy's head to make her think she was Raz's grandmother. And this part really reminded me of the Meat Circus level from the last game due to it having a similar set piece and similar music. But after completing all of the tasks given to you and following Lucy, you find the path she's been slowly making to try and get away from that circus implant. As you walk down this path, you learn the reason Ford wanted to disguise Lucy as Raz's grandmother. You see Lucy's favorite photo with Raz's family, and you finally learn that Lucy was the person to give Raz the brochure of Whispering Rock Summer Camp. At the end of the pathway, you find where Maligula is being kept, and after destroying the lock, you get ready to send her further down into Lucy's head. But just then, you get pulled out of Lucy's mind by Truman Zanato, who doesn't appear to be acting himself, so you decide to enter his mind in the final level of the game. At the start of this level, you find out that Nick, the future leader of Grulovia before its destruction, took over Truman Zanato's body. He did this in hopes of infiltrating the Psychonauts, resurrecting Maligula, and avenging Grulovia. But considering it's the final level and you can just sum it up to a theme park ride where you learn about Nick's past, it's quite mediocre, especially if you compare it to the Meat Circus from the first game. where it had platforming bits and 4 different boss sections, each based on Oleander's past and Raz's past. After that level, Maligula has been unleashed, and they're at their full power, so you're forced to run away. On your way, you find your family, who give you some words of encouragement to go stop Maligula and revert them back to Lucy. So with that, the final boss fight ensues. And it's honestly quite challenging at times, but fun at the same time, with each phase of the boss being broken up by the interns helping with their special abilities. And at the very end, you're able to push Maligula into that hole you made with the astrolabe. Of course, throughout this amazing story, they added new abilities, which include the aforementioned mental connections, which helps you connect thoughts within someone's head and pull enemies closer to you, the time bubble to help you slow down platforms and enemies, and finally, the projection ability, which helps you distract enemies and get you to places you couldn't before. But they just had to remove some abilities from the last game, which includes Confusion, Psy Shield, and my favorite ability from the first game, Invisibility. In my frustration that they didn't add Invisibility to Psychonauts 2, I made the Invisibility Supporters Club. And by the looks of it, we're getting a call in now.
What's this? Wait, let me check this again.
I agree with this.
No invisibility. Are you kidding me, man?
Garbage.
Look at this. Psychonauts 1, you can blaze through the enemies. Remember that cool mission with the spies and stuff and the milkman? You could go invisible, shoot guys. But you can't do that anymore. You can't go invisible.
He's spitting facts.
Unbelievable. This game's poo-poo. 0 out of 10. Donkey would not recommend.
I know. Now, of course, to make this game a collectathon, there has to be collectibles, and these can be found both in levels and hubs, and my favorite collectibles in this whole game have got to be the scavenger hunt items. The reason why I love these items so much is because they each have unique designs that give a little bit of lore about the characters or places within this game. And when you get all of them, you gain the ability to wear your original costume from Psychonauts 1. Other than the scavenger hunt items, the collectibles that you can find outside of the mines include the 99 Psy cards, which upon crafting with Psy cores that you can get from the shop, or just by finding them around the hubs, you can get up to 24 Psy challenge markers. Then there's the 16 supply chests and keys, which can give you a lot of extra Psytanium, so that way you can buy the 33 pins within the stores. Next, for the collectibles within the mines, there's the 1300 unique figments and the 20 memory vaults, which help show the emotions and past of these characters. The 22 half A mines and 45 pieces of emotional baggage, which don't show too much, but do have a pretty nice jingle when you find them. And finally, the 29 nuggets of wisdom, which serve as a trophy to show the things a character has a lot of knowledge about. After my almost 17-hour-long playthrough of this game, I can confidently say it lives up to the original and all of the hype it got. And in my opinion, it's even better than the original. But I didn't see a single Milkman reference, so it might as well have failed.